My beloved child, pause for a moment. Do not rush past these words as if they are ordinary, because what you are about to hear carries a weight that your spirit has been sensing long before your eyes found this message. There is a reason your attention stopped here. There is a reason your heart feels strangely alert. There is a reason you felt compelled to listen instead of moving on. Something is stirring. Not in the distance. Not in another season. Not years from now. Something is already beginning to move. And before your mind tries to dismiss this feeling, before logic starts building walls around possibility, listen carefully. Because this message is not about numbers. It is not merely about money. It is not simply about a bank account. It is about what those things have represented in your life. For a long time, you have looked at certain situations and wondered if anything would ever change. You smiled when others were watching. You remained strong when others expected you to fall apart. You carried worries that nobody knew existed. You laid awake during silent nights calculating possibilities, thinking, recalculating, hoping, trying to figure out how everything would work out. And yet even during those moments, when uncertainty sat beside you like a shadow, something within your soul refused to completely surrender. You may not have noticed it. You may not have understood it. But I did. I saw every moment, every silent prayer, every whispered question, every tear that never reached another person's eyes, every time you stared at a screen, every time you checked an account, every time you wondered if relief would ever come. And now I ask you something. What if the chapter you thought would last forever is already reaching its final pages? What if the waiting was not punishment? What if the delay was not abandonment? What if the silence was preparing you for a moment that would make sense only after it arrived? There are things happening around you that you cannot yet see. Conversations, decisions, movements, doors shifting on unseen hinges, pieces positioning themselves in places you never expected. And while you have been focused on what has not happened yet, heaven has been quietly arranging what comes next. This is why your spirit has felt different recently. You thought it was imagination. You thought it was random emotion. But something deeper has been happening. A signal, a whisper, a stirring beneath the surface. Because the season that is approaching does not resemble the season you are leaving behind. Listen closely. There are people who believe their future is determined solely by what they can currently see. They look at today's circumstances and assume tomorrow must look the same. They look at limitations and mistake them for destiny. They look at temporary conditions and call them permanent realities. But that has never been how I work. The greatest changes often begin before there is any visible evidence. The largest doors often begin opening before anyone hears the first creak of the hinge. The most significant breakthroughs often start in complete silence. And that silence confuses people. It confuses them because they assume nothing is happening. But silence does not mean inactivity. A seed grows in silence. The dawn arrives in silence. The tide changes in silence. And some of the most important shifts in your life have already begun moving beneath the surface where your eyes cannot yet follow. Something within you knows this. That is why these words feel familiar. That is why your heart feels as though it has heard this message before. Not with your ears, with your spirit. Because long before this moment arrived, a part of you sensed that something was changing. You sensed it during ordinary days. You sensed it while driving. You sensed it while working. You sensed it during moments when there was absolutely no logical reason to feel hopeful. Yet hope appeared anyway. Why? Because your spirit often notices what your eyes have not yet discovered. And there is another reason you were guided here today. Many people are about to miss what is coming because they are looking in the wrong direction. They are searching for answers where answers do not exist. They are waiting for certainty before taking another step. They are waiting for proof before believing. But some opportunities arrive disguised as ordinary moments. Some blessings arrive wearing the clothes of coincidence. Some answers appear in forms nobody expected. And if a person is distracted, they walk past the very thing they prayed for. That is why I am asking you to pay attention. Not out of fear. Not because something terrible is coming. But because something important deserves your awareness. The next part of your journey requires attention. It requires trust. It requires the ability to recognize movement even before the entire picture becomes clear. Because there is a difference between waiting and preparing. Many people wait. Few prepare. Waiting simply watches the clock. Preparing watches the horizon. And whether you realize it or not, your spirit has been preparing. Every lesson, every disappointment, every delay, every unexpected turn, they have been shaping something within you. Strength, wisdom, discernment, patience, perspective, qualities that cannot be purchased, qualities that can only be developed. And now those qualities are becoming valuable, more valuable than you currently understand. There is a reason I keep drawing your attention back to this moment. There is a reason your heart feels a growing sense of anticipation. Because the story is bigger than what you currently see. Far bigger. Imagine standing in front of a giant mural while looking through a tiny hole. You see fragments, colors, shapes, pieces, but you cannot yet see the entire image. That is where you are now. You have seen pieces. You have experienced fragments. You have encountered clues. Yet the complete picture remains hidden. Not forever. Just for now. Because timing matters. Revelation arrives when understanding is ready to receive it. And understanding is getting closer. Much closer. In fact, there is something I want you to remember. The breakthrough itself is not the greatest gift. The transformation that happens within you before the breakthrough arrives is often the greater miracle. Anyone can celebrate after receiving good news. But maintaining hope before receiving it, that changes a person. Maintaining faith before results appear, that builds character. Maintaining trust while answers remain hidden, that develops strength. You have been building strength. Even on days when you felt weak. Even on days when you questioned yourself. Even on days when you wondered whether anyone was listening. You were becoming stronger. And strength has a purpose. Because what is coming next requires a version of you that did not exist before. Think about that carefully. If certain opportunities had arrived years ago, would you have been ready? If certain doors had opened immediately, would you have recognized their value? If every prayer had been answered instantly, would you have learned what needed to be learned? Sometimes the delay protects the blessing. Sometimes preparation protects the future. Sometimes waiting creates the capacity necessary to sustain what is coming. And there are things coming, more than you currently realize. Some of them will appear small at first, almost insignificant. A conversation, a message, an unexpected development, a surprising connection, a piece of information, an opportunity, a moment that seems ordinary until later. And when it happens, many people around you may not recognize its importance. But you will, because your spirit has been prepared. Your eyes are beginning to awaken. Your awareness is expanding. You are becoming capable of seeing patterns where others see randomness. Purpose where others see coincidence. Direction where others see confusion. That is why this message found you. Not because everything is already visible, but because visibility is approaching, closer than you think. And there is something else, something deeper, something most people never understand. The resources that enter a person's life are often connected to the responsibilities they are meant to carry. Read that again with your heart. Resources often follow responsibility. Provision often follows purpose. Support often follows assignment. And there are assignments connected to your future that you have not yet fully seen. There are people you will encourage, lives you will influence, doors you will help open, hope you will help restore. The story has never been only about you. The story has always been larger, much larger, because every blessing carries the potential to become a blessing for someone else. And heaven pays attention to what flows through a person's hands, not merely what arrives in them. This is why your character has mattered. This is why your growth has mattered. This is why your preparation has mattered. You thought you were simply surviving, but you were becoming ready. Ready for conversations. Ready for opportunities. Ready for decisions. Ready for moments that have not yet arrived. And some of those moments are closer than you realize. Very close. Close enough that your spirit has already begun sensing their approach. Close enough that your heart occasionally feels anticipation without explanation. Close enough that unexpected hope has started appearing during ordinary days. You wondered why. Now you know. Because movement has already begun. Even if evidence remains hidden. Even if answers remain incomplete. Even if details remain unrevealed. Movement has begun. And there is one more thing I need you to hear before this moment ends. Do not allow old disappointments to define your expectations. Do not allow previous delays to convince you that every future answer will be delayed. Do not allow past outcomes to become permanent predictions. The future is not obligated to repeat the past. What happened before does not possess authority over what comes next. A new chapter does not ask permission from an old chapter before it begins. It simply begins, quietly, unexpectedly, powerfully. And sometimes the first sign that it has begun is a message like this one. A message that awakens attention. A message that stirs expectation. A message that prepares the heart before revelation arrives. Because revelation is approaching, closer than you know. Closer than you imagine, closer than anyone around you realizes. And in the next part of this message, I will reveal the hidden sign that many people overlook right before a major shift begins. The sign that has already appeared around you more than once recently, and the reason a specific opportunity connected to your future may arrive in a way you never expected. But for now, hold this truth close. The story is moving. The silence is not empty, and what is beginning behind the scenes is far greater than what you can currently see. A quiet change has already begun, and most people would never notice it. Not because it is hidden, not because it is impossible to see, but because they are looking for dramatic signs while the most important shifts often arrive wrapped in ordinary moments. That is why I asked you to stay attentive. Because what I am about to reveal is connected to something you have experienced recently. Yet you may have dismissed it without realizing its significance. Think back for a moment. Have you noticed how certain thoughts have been returning to you again and again? Not random thoughts. Not worries. Something different. Ideas. Possibilities. Sudden flashes of inspiration. Moments when you unexpectedly imagined a different future. A future that felt brighter than the one you had been expecting. Many people believe those moments are accidents. They believe hope simply appears for no reason. But hope is often a messenger. A whisper before movement. A signal before manifestation. A glimpse before revelation. Your spirit has been receiving those glimpses. That is why you have felt unusual moments of confidence even when circumstances seemed unchanged. That is why there have been brief periods when your heart felt lighter without explanation. That is why a strange anticipation has occasionally appeared in the middle of an ordinary day. The sign has already begun. And it is not happening outside of you first. It is happening within you. Because every significant change begins inside before it becomes visible outside. A tree begins as an unseen seed. A sunrise begins while the sky is still dark. A breakthrough often begins while circumstances still appear exactly the same. That is the part most people misunderstand. They assume transformation starts when they can finally see evidence. But transformation often starts much earlier, long before the evidence arrives, long before the announcement, long before the opportunity, long before the answer. And that is exactly where you are standing now. You are standing in a place between what was and what is about to be, a place that feels confusing, a place that feels mysterious, a place where the old chapter no longer feels right, yet the new chapter has not fully revealed itself. Many people become frustrated in this season. Many people give up. Many people lose faith because they mistake transition for stagnation. But transition is not stagnation. Transition is movement. Movement that cannot yet be measured. Movement that cannot yet be explained. Movement that can only be sensed. And your spirit has been sensing it. That is why these words feel strangely personal. That is why something deep inside you keeps saying, pay attention. Because there is more happening than your eyes can currently confirm. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean before dawn. The horizon looks empty. The sky appears quiet. Yet beyond what you can see, the sun is already rising. Its movement has already started. Its arrival is already guaranteed. The only thing left is the moment when your eyes finally catch up with reality. That is where you are. Your eyes are catching up. Your understanding is catching up. Your awareness is catching up. And when they do, you will realize that what seemed like waiting was actually preparation. There is something else I want you to understand. The future you have been quietly hoping for is not arriving exactly the way you imagined. This surprises many people. They pray for one path and receive another. They expect one door and discover a different entrance. They look toward one horizon while their blessing approaches from another direction entirely. And because of that, they almost miss it. Do not make that mistake. Remain open. Remain observant. Remain willing to see possibilities beyond your expectations. Because some opportunities appear in forms that do not immediately look extraordinary. They look ordinary at first. A conversation, a phone call, a message, a connection, a chance encounter, a new idea, a small opening. But hidden inside that ordinary moment is something much larger, something that grows, something that expands, something that eventually reveals its true significance. You have entered a season where small things may carry enormous importance. That is why awareness matters. Not fear, not anxiety, awareness. The awareness to recognize when life begins presenting new paths. The awareness to notice unusual opportunities. The awareness to understand that not every important moment announces itself with thunder. Sometimes destiny knocks softly. Sometimes opportunity whispers. Sometimes the answer arrives so quietly that only an attentive heart notices it. And your heart is becoming attentive. More attentive than it has ever been before. Because you have learned things during your journey that could not be learned any other way. You have learned patience. You have learned resilience. You have learned how to keep moving when certainty was unavailable. You have learned how to hope even when answers seemed delayed. Those lessons were not wasted. Nothing was wasted. Not the waiting. Not the disappointment. Not the confusion. Not the uncertainty. Every experience became part of your preparation. Every challenge added something valuable to your spirit. Every obstacle strengthened muscles you did not know you were building. That is why you are stronger now. Not because life was easy, but because you kept going when it was difficult. And strength attracts responsibility. Responsibility attracts opportunity. Opportunity creates expansion. Expansion creates new possibilities. Can you feel how the pieces are beginning to connect? The story has never been random. The The story has never been meaningless. Even moments that seem disconnected were quietly leading you here, to this threshold, to this turning point, to this moment where something new is beginning to emerge. And I want you to pay attention to one specific thing in the days ahead. Not numbers, not predictions, not timelines. Pay attention to alignment. Pay attention to doors that begin opening naturally. Pay attention to opportunities that arrive without forcing them. Pay attention to situations that suddenly begin moving after feeling stuck for a long time. Because movement leaves clues. And clues are already appearing. You have noticed some of them. You simply did not realize what they meant. Perhaps a conversation happened that felt unusually significant. Perhaps an idea appeared repeatedly in your mind. Perhaps a possibility surfaced that you had nearly forgotten. Perhaps someone unexpectedly entered your path. Perhaps a delay unexpectedly ended. These moments matter more than they seem, because they are pieces of a larger picture, pieces that are slowly moving into place. And as they do, your confidence will begin growing. Not confidence based on circumstances, confidence based on understanding. The understanding that you are not wandering aimlessly. The understanding that your path has direction. The understanding that your future is still unfolding. Many people lose hope because they expect immediate results. But wisdom understands that meaningful things often develop gradually. A masterpiece is not painted in one stroke. A garden does not bloom in a single moment. A transformation does not happen overnight. Yet when the results finally appear, people often forget how much was happening behind the scenes. The same is true for your life. More has been happening behind the scenes than you realize. More connections, more preparation, more positioning, more movement. And very soon, what was hidden will begin revealing itself. Not all at once, but enough for you to recognize that something has changed. Enough for you to understand that this message was not reaching you by accident. Enough for you to see that the season ahead is different from the season behind. That realization is approaching. And when it arrives, you will remember this moment. You will remember the feeling you had while listening. You will remember the strange sense that something important was unfolding. You will remember the anticipation that seemed to appear before there was evidence. Because anticipation often arrives before manifestation. Hope often arrives before confirmation. And awareness often arrives before revelation. You are living in that space now. The space before revelation. The space before understanding becomes visible. The space before hidden pieces connect. And there is one final thing I must leave with you before this part ends. There is a specific reason certain delays remained in place longer than you wanted. A reason that has nothing to do with punishment. Nothing to do with abandonment. Nothing to do with being forgotten. It has everything to do with timing. Because there was one particular piece that had to move into position first. One particular connection. One particular decision. One particular opportunity. Without it, the next chapter could not begin the way it was meant to. But that piece has recently started moving. The shift has already begun. The first signs are already appearing. There is a reason your heart has not been able to completely let go of expectation. Even during moments when you told yourself to stop hoping. Even during days when you decided not to think about the future. Even during times when disappointment tried to convince you that nothing significant was changing. Something inside you kept looking forward. Something inside you kept waiting. Something inside you kept listening. That feeling was not weakness. It was not wishful thinking. It was not imagination. It was the quiet awareness that your story was not finished. And that awareness has become stronger for a reason. Because the hidden movement I spoke about is no longer as far away as it once was. What was once only preparation is beginning to enter the stage of revelation. Slowly, quietly, yet undeniably. Imagine standing in a valley before sunrise. At first, everything appears unchanged. The darkness looks exactly the same. The landscape seems motionless. But then something subtle happens. The horizon begins to brighten. Not enough for everyone to notice. Not enough for the entire world to change instantly. Just enough to signal that night is losing its grip. That is the season you are entering. A season where signs begin appearing. Small signs. Unexpected signs. Signs that seem insignificant until you realize they are all pointing in the same direction. Many people overlook these moments because they expect life-changing events to arrive dramatically. But some of the greatest turning points begin with a whisper, a realization, a conversation, an opportunity that appears ordinary at first glance. That is why discernment matters now more than ever. Because what is approaching may not look extraordinary on the first day. The first chapter rarely reveals the ending. The first step rarely reveals the destination. The first clue rarely reveals the entire mystery. Yet each one matters. Each one contains a piece of the larger picture. And pieces are beginning to gather around you. You may have already noticed one of them. A strange feeling that certain doors no longer seem impossible. Not open yet. Not fully visible yet. But no longer impossible. That shift is important. Because impossibility has been losing its influence over your thinking. Little by little, day by day, your perspective has been changing. And perspective is powerful. A person can stand in front of opportunity and never recognize it if their perspective remains trapped in old limitations. That is why part of your preparation involved changing the way you see yourself, changing the way you see your future, changing the way you see what is possible. For too long, you measured tomorrow using yesterday's disappointments. You looked at past outcomes and assumed they would continue forever. But something has been breaking that pattern. You have started imagining possibilities again. You have started considering outcomes that once seemed unrealistic. You have started believing that change could actually happen. And that belief is not accidental. Because your spirit often begins adjusting before your circumstances do. Your spirit begins preparing for a reality that your eyes have not yet seen. This is why hope has been returning. Not constantly, not perfectly, but enough to remind you that something remains unfinished. There is another reason I wanted you to hear this message today. Because a great number of people misunderstand the purpose of provision. They think provision is only about comfort, only about security, only about accumulation. But true provision is often connected to purpose. It arrives not merely to bless a person, but to equip them, to strengthen them, to position them, to enable them to move into the next assignment waiting for them. And there are assignments connected to your future that are larger than you realize. Conversations you have not yet had, people you have not yet met, doors you have not yet walked through, experiences you have not yet imagined. The future is carrying more possibilities than your current perspective can fully contain. That is why expansion is happening inside you first. Your capacity is growing. Your understanding is growing. Your awareness is growing. And growth always precedes increase. Always. A river must deepen before it can carry more water. A foundation must strengthen before it can support greater weight. A person must grow before they can sustain what is coming next. You have been growing. Even when you felt stuck. Even when progress seemed invisible. Even when life appeared unchanged. Growth was happening. Preparation was happening. Positioning was happening. And now the first hints of manifestation are beginning to appear. Perhaps not where you expected. Perhaps not in the form you imagined. But they are appearing. That is why I want you to pay close attention to moments that feel unusually aligned. Moments when events connect in ways that seem almost impossible to arrange. Moments when the right information appears at exactly the right time. Moments when solutions arrive from unexpected directions. Moments when opportunities emerge where obstacles once stood. These moments are not random. They are clues. Clues that the next chapter is approaching. Clues that movement is accelerating. Clues that what has been hidden is beginning to rise toward visibility. And there is something fascinating about visibility. Once it arrives, people often assume it happened overnight. They see the result and forget the preparation. They see the harvest and forget the planting. They see the breakthrough and forget the waiting. But you will remember. You will remember the quiet days, the uncertain nights, the unanswered questions, the moments when faith required courage. Because those moments became part of the story, a necessary part, a meaningful part. Without them, you would not be the person you are becoming. And the person you are becoming matters more than you currently understand. Because the next chapter is not simply about receiving something, it is about becoming someone. Someone wiser, someone stronger, someone more aware. Someone capable of recognizing opportunities that a previous version of you might have overlooked. That transformation is already underway, and it is creating space for what comes next. Now listen carefully. There is a particular clue that many people miss right before a significant shift begins. The clue is this: a growing sense that the old season no longer fits. You may have felt it recently. A feeling that certain limitations no longer belong in your future. A feeling that certain doors are meant to close. A feeling that something new is trying to emerge. That feeling is important, because endings and beginnings often overlap. The old chapter starts losing its hold before the new chapter fully arrives. That overlap can feel uncomfortable, confusing, uncertain. Yet it is often one of the strongest signs that transition is taking place. You are no longer who you were, and your future is no longer what it once appeared to be. Something is changing, something is unfolding, something is approaching. The horizon is brightening, the pieces are aligning, the story is moving. And while I will not reveal every detail yet, I can tell you this. The thing you have been looking toward is not the only thing moving toward you. There is another element, another piece, another development taking shape behind the scenes. A development connected to a person, a decision, and an opportunity that have not fully entered your awareness yet. That hidden piece is far more significant than it currently appears. In fact, it may become the very reason a future door opens wider than you imagined possible. But that revelation belongs to the next part. For now, hold on to this truth. The signs are increasing. The preparation is working. The movement is real. And the unexpected connection that has quietly been forming behind the scenes is much closer than you think. Closer than yesterday. Closer than last week. Closer than the moment you began listening.